because that starts the reproductive stage. When the flowers start blooming, you know, the birds and the bees. Good morning. Finally got a haircut. My wife yelled at me I can't wear a hat anymore. Something about my forehead being way too white. I've got to get that tanned, unfortunately, now, so you've got to look at my ugly head. We are back to spraying. We should be finishing up the second pass on the beans here today, or tomorrow, excuse me. No way I can get it done today. It is afternoon now. I had some meetings to attend to this morning and a haircut. For now, we're going to take off, get the water loaded up, because we've got to do 1 or 2 more loads on the 120 that I'm on now to get finished. Oh, hello, beautiful. Are you going to be good to me today? I may as well take this time to kind of let you guys know what I'm doing here. Maybe you've never seen a soybean in your life. Maybe you have. Maybe you just don't know how any of the growth stages work or anything like that. As you can see, I'm late on these beans. So here's the flower. These are actually just now flowering recently. And the reason I don't want to be spraying these when it flowers is because that starts the reproductive stage. When the flowers start blooming, you know, the birds and the bees, that is the reproductive stage. You don't really want to spray them then because it can ding the yield. But they hadn't been growing for so long and we were just waiting for a rain before we sprayed so that this product could actually hopefully do something. And unfortunately we just never got rain. So here we are. A lot of these aren't flowered yet, but there are some that are there. But anyway, so when the bean comes out of the ground, it's actually basically, it splits the seed and brings out the little cotyledons, which are these two here. They turned into leaves. And these 2 leaves, the cotyledon is basically just a ton of food for the plant right off the bat, which it might be these 2 little ones down here that it's kind of sucked them up, dried them out. And then you've got a unifoliate, single leaf. And then you start putting on these trifoliates, and these are what your V stages are. So we can actually look here and see, okay, here's a trifoliate, that's V1. Here's a trifoliate, that's V2. Here's V3. V4. V5. V6. We don't count him because he's not open. And it is actually past the R stages, the reproductive stages, quite a bit here. So it's more like in the V5 area, these beans. And we really wanted to be spraying these between the V2, V3, maybe the V4 stages, because between the V4 and 6 is when it starts flowering, doing those reproductive stages. So like some of these, they're not there yet. We've got 1 trifoliate, 2, and a 3rd. And here's your trifoliate that's not open yet. So this is in V3, and it's not flowering yet. That's perfect. That's right where we want to be when we do start spraying these. Unfortunately, like I said, we waited. And I don't know what this is going to do to the beans, honestly, because it's so dry. These should be way farther along than what they are. The heat and no moisture just stunted these so bad. So basically what we're doing now is we're just worrying about weed control. We've got corn growing, you know, volunteer corn. We're killing that, getting it out of the way. Beans like it really clean as soon as they're up out of the ground. They're not necessarily as picky as corn, but beans don't like any competition. And unfortunately, with the strip till, we do have to keep on these 30-inch rows. And I think twin rows or, you know, like a seed drill or something like that might be better, just because it canopies over the rows a lot sooner. As you can see with these 30-inch rows, that's a lot of room for weeds to grow. Canopy doesn't really cover those rows for a while, and so that is an issue. We do have to keep on the weeds a little bit more and I think going to, you know, a twin row or 15-inch row or a seed drill would definitely help suppress those weeds a lot better. But like I said, with the strip till that we're running, we keep everything on 30-inch rows, so there's a trade-off for everything, I guess. I should say too, there's a difference between beans that we grow here in the northern states versus the southern states. So there's indeterminate, I believe is what they call them, and determinate soybeans. The indeterminate is what we're growing. So they'll actually start the flowering stages, the reproductive stages, while the plant is still growing. So the time of day actually controls when they start their reproductive stages. So when the days start shortening, that plant realizes, hey, I don't have all the time in the world to grow this plant here, so I'm going to go ahead and start my reproductive stage so I can get these pods out here with the soybeans. Whereas in the south, you know, they've got sunlight and stuff for days, so it actually is called a determinate soybean, and it will just grow the entire plant all the way up to what we see towards the end here. Then it will start flowering. So it actually determines when it will flower, not the time of day like up here. So I also just learned this handy trick not too long ago as well. So when your pressure's not set in the sprayer, if you have this system, you can see that my PSI is 0. Nothing's been charged or anything like that. I do have my monitors on, my controllers on. Main pump is turned on. Sections are all turned on. You go up here to your ag leader. You just click on the mile per hour. You change this to manual speed, whatever speed you want. It doesn't have to be 15. It could be, you know, 8. It doesn't matter. You just go ahead and set that. Then you can turn off your overlap, whatever you're mapping, so that it allows you to spray even where you've already sprayed. And you just hit the master switch one time and right back off again, and there you go. You're primed. That way you don't have to move forward and stop it and then back up to where you wanted to go. Most of you probably already knew that, but it's news to me. I just never even tried. I knew you could set it manually, but after putting this new system on, it kind of occurred to me, oh hey, I can just trick it into thinking I'm moving and then just go ahead and tap my master switch and get pressure, and hey, it works. So okay, we have sprayed off about 40 acres worth, 38.2 to be exact. We are down to about, I don't know, 2 acres left of product in the tank, so I'm just waiting on Dad at this point. It's a pretty far drive for him to go get water, load with chemicals. We are running 20 gallon an acre just to get the coverage out onto the ground, kill these weeds the best we can. There are some weeds that are, you know, this tall, there's some weeds that are this tall. There's no real perfect time to spray, but unfortunately with the dry weather, we were late this year. Oh my, what a beautiful morning. It's been a day. We didn't come back here and spray yesterday. It was very windy, looked like rain pretty much all day. Of course that didn't happen. We're leaving the cleth out. We kind of walked it yesterday when we seen how windy it was and stuff. We're like, we'll just drop the nurse tank here, leave the water here, that way we can just roll first thing in the morning, be good to go. And we'll kind of walk out here, see what's going on. Really, the middle of the field is spotless. It's just the edges of the field are very weedy. I don't know why. I mean, you can see all the weeds on the edges of the field. And unfortunately, some of those weeds are water hemp, and they're very big. So we upped the rate of our Liberty as well. Hopefully that helps. Let me go ahead and turn the remote pump on here. Open up our bypass just a little. Keep the sump on. All that's doing is it's just letting this tank agitate. I'm just letting it sit there and churn a little bit, just in case the chemicals settled at all, since it has been sitting a day. Get them mixed up. Good to go. While I'm turning on my monitors and getting all that stuff set, it can be sitting there mixing. Ah, yes, I remember what I was talking about. We're leaving the cleth out because we walked this field and the field across the street too, and there's no corn standing in the field whatsoever. So, and it's not because our corn head just did that great of a job and the hybrid just held the ears of corn on the stalk so good. It's just because there's so much deer around here that they just cleaned everything up that might have been sitting in this field. Any piece of corn, any corn on the cob, gone. It's just, and even when the crop was standing in the field, they smoked it. I mean, it dropped the field like 5 to 10 bushel an acre, not even joking. They just smoked my corn up here. And it was a 107 day, just flowered early, and oh my gosh, they just loved it. Just creamed it. And of course we put it all on the outside end rows, and just you could just see it. It looked terrible. It yielded fantastically. I mean, the two fields still yielded, I think on average, close to the 270 range, 265, 270, even after the deer destroyed that much corn. So it yielded great, but obviously I can't do that again. So I chose a different number this year. Hope the deer don't like it as much because there's just so many deer here. It's unreal. Oh, shut this. Turn this guy off. Turn him down. Should be good to go. The biggest issue we're seeing with the sprayer this year, it's not like we didn't hit our first pass in a timely manner. It's just that everything was so dry, the weeds were hardened off, they weren't taking up anything out of the ground because it was so dry, they weren't growing. And for that case, they weren't taking up the chemical, and so they just weren't dying. The contact herbicides worked on most everything, but like the water hemp especially, those suckers are tough. And you gotta hit them contact and hope something gets taken up through the roots to just kill it, because otherwise it's probably not going anywhere. And that's what happened. A lot of this water hemp survived because it was so dry. You can just see here. Here's a patch of water hemp. Obviously there's grass in between it, but you can see it all. It looks terrible. And that patch of water hemp could have just been one plant that we missed, one weed that we missed last season. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. Well, we are finally done with the second pass on beans. We should have been done a long time ago, but breakdowns happen. Things do happen, and hey, that's okay. So we're rinsing out on our cover crop bean ground. We only sprayed one time here. So we were thinking, whatever we have left, we'll just maybe do the end rows of this field just to make sure we get everything cleaned up here. If there is anything, usually it's going to be on the end rows, but there is absolutely nothing out here. So we actually did save an entire pass on these beans. Yeah, that's pretty big if you think about it. Only one pass of spraying on these beans. And I'm not kidding when I say it is absolutely clean. Like you can't see anything. There's no weeds whatsoever. It is just beans and dead rye. That is it. I will say though that it does look pretty cool. All that dead cover crop, the beans just growing right through it. They look good too, considering they had very large rye on top of them. Very good stand of beans. Obviously not as tall as the rest of our beans, but they were being smothered by rye, so they look good. So yeah, there's just absolutely nothing out here. As you can see from the drone footage, I mean, if you can find a weed, let me know. Drop a GPS pin in the comments. Here's what our corn looks like. This is black sand. I'm surprised. I really don't know how it looks the way that it does, but this is how it looks. Still dark and still dark green. It's starting to twist up a little to protect itself from the sun, as it will do that, but it looks good. I mean, there are a few areas you can see here with sand, and it's rough, it's dying, but it is what it is on this piece. You can see them kind of not looking too great. Well, we've got the fresh water tank running into the sprayer tank, and that'll be the last rinse that I do, and this pass of beans is done. And I'll be taking her home. So while that's filling, I've kind of just been enjoying the day. It's absolutely gorgeous out. I've just kind of been walking around, checking the beans out. They look really good. They are flowering. They're pretty small, but they are flowering. I mean, anyway, that fresh water tank is probably empty by now, so we're gonna go get everything shut off, go spray that out, and head the sucker home. It is beautiful out, but my gosh, I wish it would rain. Well, that's a problem. At least it's water and not chemical this time. It's always something. I just want to go home. These fittings are just, they're trash. They're not holding on. So I'm gonna have to change that one too. Luckily, like I said, it's just water in the boom, so I didn't kill anything. Although I'm sure I was spraying all that out as soon as I started. Oh Lord. I just happened to look over and see it. Like I said, I'm just trying to go home. Like, do you have to do this to me? Yeah, these barbs are just, they're not enough. So I recommend you go out and buy like the 3-inch, which has got 2 big barbs and you can get the clamp in between them. That's what I did on the boom on down. And we haven't had any problems with these. I'm surprised we're having them now, but this new system must just jump the pressure enough that it's blowing these hoses off. Ooh, really get her on there. Okay. All right, we're back together. Oh, Jesus. Hey, if you've made it this far into the video, feel free to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment down below if you got any questions, and I appreciate y'all watching. Thank you. See you in the next one.